Welcome to the Saturday Sex Show. So, do we ever have a good show for you today? So, here we go. Let's get right into our subject. Well, hello, and I hope you're having a good afternoon like we are. I got my sleeves rolled up, the sun's out, and it's a really nice day out here. So I'm just looking at the live chat to see who's all on. We have a nice crew on. I want to welcome everyone to the show. And if you have never been on this show before and you're just kind of watching in the background, well, the Saturday Sex Show is about looking at all kinds of abstract things, perhaps. Sometimes on this show, we look at some of the XJW entertainers, and we're going to be looking more into the musicians here on on the Saturday Sex Show, as well as we have a show Tuesday nights, JW Night Talk, and we do that as well. So today we will be looking at another creator, one that we have brought on this show before. But before we get into that, I want to ask everyone a question here. And I'm just going to pull it up on my screen here. And before I do that, I'm going to say hi to the group. K. Fred, STTCO Pilot. Hey, Vern. Hey. STR. So we have a little group on here. And Michelle Mooney. Nice to see you. Thanks for your recommendation, Michelle. By the way, I seen your comment come in, and right away I brought up the Purple Triangle movie. We're going to watch it. It's a really good movie, the Purple Triangle movie, on jw.org, and it's very fitting for the program. So thank you, Michelle, for that. And we're going to carry on. I got a question for everyone. We've been talking a lot on. If you follow my some of my other clips, I've been running some commentary on scandals within the Watchtower. And we talked about, we talked about a lot of things. But one of the things that sticks out in my mind is the Catholic dioceses are going bankrupt. Like, they're going bankrupt. I thought the Catholic Church was very rich, but I guess the Vatican and just like all these big companies, they have shell companies. So they put everything under shell companies, and someone has to go broke. But eventually the public is going to turn on where the money is, right? You're going to go where the money is, I think. Anyways, what I throw out is speculation. I'm no expert at anything. I am going to show you guys an XJW that is somewhat of an expert. He runs his own church outside of Christianity. He got off, left the JWs, and now there's a lot of us that don't go to church anymore. We're not interested in religion, but we're still spiritual. So sometimes online we want to tune in to someone that is spiritual. So I'm going to take you, after we talk about the largest growing Christian religion right now, is Pentecostalism. So the Catholic diocese is going bankrupt. The Jehovah's Witnesses, their assembly halls are half full. And I think that's going to change as more and more of this CSA stuff comes out. So Pentecostalism, it says, according to various scholars and sources, Pentecostalism, a Protestant Christian movement, is the fastest growing religion in the world. And this growth is primarily due to religious conversion. According to a Pulitzer Center, 35,000 people became Pentecostal or born again every day. So there's something to boast about. Pentecostalism. Now, I wanted to get outside of Christian religion, and I already did the search. Yeah, I wanted to find out what's the largest growing religion on earth today. What do you think it is? Well, Islam, the fastest growing religion on earth. And here's what it says. I'm going to throw this up on the big screen for you guys, because this is actually quite interesting. There, that might be a little better. I'm going to carry on and read this. Why Islam is the world's fastest growing religion? While the global population is expected to grow 32% by 2060, the number of Muslims is expected to grow 70%, according to the Pew Research Center. In the second half of this century, the number of Muslims is projected to surpass the number of Christians around the world. Co Hackett, Associate Director of Research and Senior Demographic, blah, blah, blah. Interview highlights on why the global Muslim population is growing so rapidly. Good question, right? So it says Muslims are the youngest major religious group in the world. Youngest. You see, in Jehovah's Witness land, all the young people are leaving. So maybe that, well, in Catholic land, they're going bankrupt. And in Mormon land, I don't know what's going on. They're getting sued. The biggest lawsuits are in Mormon land. But here in Muslim land, the youngest major religious group in the world, they have a media age of 24, and Muslims have more children than people in any other group, about 3 children per woman who's Muslim, compared to about 2.2 children per woman who's not Muslim in the world. And people, of course, do change religious faiths, and we've measured religious switching. But for Muslims, the story, as far as well as we can tell, is really about natural increase. A lot more Muslims being born that are dying in any given year. So it's just a matter of math. And on people changing their religious identity, that's another question. It says we've studied a couple dozen Muslim majority countries, and we don't see much change in religious identity in those countries. For instance, in Egypt, most people who grew up Christian retain that identity as adults, and the same for those who grew up as Muslim. Now, there are some restrictions on switching faith in Muslim majority countries, and you might be stigmatized on the face of legal consequences for apostasy for changing faith. So you see, even in Muslim faiths, you can be apostasy for changing faiths in that. And if you follow some of the Muslim stuff, we followed a program on TV on the Muslim, it was called Little Mosque in the Prairie. Really good show. It was on, I don't know if you can research it, but we kind of learned a lot. It wasn't too far off from Jehovah's Witnesses. The women were treated different than the men. And there was all kinds of rules. You have to wear head bonnets, and the dating rules are kind of the same. But let's face it, the Muslim religion does come Muslim. It's from Abraham. It's an Abrahamic religion, so it's comes from the same roots as Christianity comes from. The old Abrahamic covenants and stuff like that. So that's all we're going to say on that. Now, while we're on this screen here, I want to show you guys, this is like a channel you can go to. It's an XJW, John the Preacher. So here John the Preacher is. How we can support our XJW creators, and John the Preacher is one. He was grew up as a JW, kind of. We did a live on John a while ago. You can go back and look at it. And he came on, and we did the best we could on that live. So John is an actor, and he went through high school. He was regular pioneering in high school, and he became an actor in drama class, and he loves acting. And John does a lot of acting on this site. I love some of his stuff. And how we can support our XJW creators is subscribe. And if we subscribe and their subscriptions grow, they will make more movies. So let's help John grow. Let's subscribe. Let's watch a few of his shows. Now I'm going to show you, I was watching a few of his shows. I like a lot of what John's doing. And we're going to watch this one on Armageddon, how to protect your family. He does this take in his church. He has a lot of different takes, and he does a lot of alien takes. And if you really think about the aliens, there's a lot of talk about aliens. The governments are having meetings with the aliens. We did some of this on the Saturday Sex Show. We ran a bit on the Anunnaki. We ran a bit on Regency, where there's a galactic federation out there of aliens, and they're all watching us on Earth, and they're waiting for us to wake up. They're waiting for us to wake up outside of religion. So here John is. John woke up, and John is actually going into outer space and visiting with the aliens, and he's bringing us back various messages. So of course these are all satires. John makes a play on what's going on out there. So let's take a look at this Armageddon one, how to protect your family. I got to turn on my audio mixer for that. So to get that to play nice, I'm going to turn on my desktop audio, put this on full screen, and then I'm gonna I'm gonna disappear so you guys can watch the whole movie here. And yeah, I'm gonna disappear here too. So here we go.
Moses told Pharaoh, let my people free. Today, John the preacher helps people to see how they should live life because sinners they be. Greetings, Congregation Rainbow Warriors. It's John the Preacher. Welcome, friends. As always, I'd like to begin my sermon with a little bit of humor. Knock, knock. If we were all in person, you would respond in a lively manner, and you would say, "Who's there?" Go ahead, say it out loud. The Lord will let me hear you in spirit. Then I will say, "Noah." Then you will say, "Noah who?" Then I will say, "Noah the Great." Then you will say, "Noah the Great who?" And then finally, I will say, "Noah the Great Rainbow." That joke was delivered to me by the Holy Spirit to lighten the mood before we begin discussing the most important of topics and the subject of today's sermon, which is, of course, Armageddon and the billions of people who will be slaughtered on the great day of judgment. You'll recall that Noah's rainbow was a reminder that God promised never to destroy the world again with a flood. But we must keep in mind that he is very eager to destroy nearly all life on the planet, including the children and all the animals, by other means. This time, probably with fireballs or some other type of incendiary explosives. That is why we have changed the name of our congregation to Congregation Rainbow Warriors. Because we the faithful in John the Preacher, who will survive the coming destruction, are the figurative rainbow symbol of God's promise never to destroy the world again until it's time for him to once more destroy the world again. Now I get a lot of questions about what will happen to all of the children of the wicked and unrepentant who have not accepted the truth of John the Preacher. Who will care for them after Armageddon comes? Well, the good news is we don't have to worry about it because they will also be destroyed. Everyone knows that we're born in sin, and so every baby is an enemy of God. And the closer we are to birth, the more sinful we are. Fortunately, for those of you who are following the teachings of John the Preacher, your children will probably be okay. Of course, every family could have a bad seed or two, and that is why we have a special announcement. The Lord has gifted us a brand new publication to keep your children close to the revelations of John the Preacher. Here it is. My Bible book of childish stories. And this book contains deleted scenes and bonus material not found in the original Bible. that were only revealed to me. For example, if you grew up in a God-fearing American household, you are no doubt familiar with the story in the book of Daniel of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The three boys who bravely refused to bow down to the idol and were thrown into the fiery furnace by King Nebuchadnezzar. But they were saved because they were fireproof. But what you didn't know is that there were two other brothers. Only John the Preacher knows that. And the other two brothers were named Rimjib and Shushak. So now we will consider the story of the 5 Hebrew brothers. The Babylonians didn't stop simply at throwing them into the fire. They also tried to drown them, but they couldn't do it because Shushak drank the sea. They, in fact, tried to kill the brothers many other ways, but they had problems because Rimjib could secretly turn himself into a dinosaur, which was the real reason they wanted them all dead. And so, friends, the moral of the story is, if you stay faithful to John the Preacher, God will give you supernatural abilities that will allow you to survive anything, especially Armageddon. Now, that's all we have time for this week, friends. Please join us next week as we consider the child story of Daniel being mauled by lions in the lion's den because he had doubts that he didn't say out loud, but that he harbored in his heart. Now, friends, please join me in a closing prayer. Lord, help the righteous and unholy understand that they must repent in the short time we have left before the final end by liking this video, sharing it with others so others might be saved, and by subscribing to this channel. And Lord, most of all, please put it in their hearts that they understand they must immediately be giving 5% of their income to help support this life-saving vital work at www.patreon.com/John the Preacher. Amen.
Well, there you have it. There's John the Preacher. So here we are. Yeah. So I'm just going to get out of here and go back to John the Preacher's site. So that was a lot of work, that video by John the Preacher. Thank you, John, if you're out there, if you're watching, appreciate that. And what I liked about it, like you made the Bible storybook like look real, like and then the graphics you put into that, and the 5 Hebrews, and really when we think of all these stories the Bible talks about, they're stories. A lot of them come from mythology. That's coming out. There's a lot of new stuff coming out in the age that we're living in that's helping us to see that perhaps the Bible may get rewritten. Maybe it's not the book that's explaining things exactly the way it was. But we appreciate John the Preacher, and like John said, you can support him by subscribing, and that's how you support the creators, and especially our XJW creators. And they'll make more movies like this, and they have a good satire, a good take on helping us waking up. And they put a laugh. I was busting my guts through this video. Now, one of the other videos I'd like to play on John's site, but I'm going to let you guys go to his site and subscribe and play it for yourself. And he just released one, Aliens Disclosure Equals End Times, the Bug Out Bag Tips. So he's talking about the bug out bag, kind of like this bug out bag that they're talking about at the JW assemblies. So if you want to know what you should have in your bug out bag, and you're a JW, go to John the Preacher. He's an ex-JW. He's a professional at this. He will give you a whole list of everything you need in your bug out bag, but you'll have to go to his site to see this. So we're going to move on, folks, in the program, and what you signed up for was the Holocaust. That's really what we were talking about, and that's one of the main parts of the that we wanted to bring out on this. Well, the Holocaust, in case you don't know, which everyone does, it was a genocide of the European Jews during World War II between 1941 and 1945. Nazi Germany and its collaborators systematically murdered some Holocaust victims. So today we're going to look at that. We're going to look at jw.org. I'll put it on the screen here just so you guys can see what I'm seeing. And when we plug that in, we see surviving persecution in Germany. It comes up, there's a wake, there's lots of stuff on it on JW.org. Memorial site in Germany organizes traveling exhibition recognizing persecution of Jehovah's Witnesses. So they talk a lot about how they were persecuted. You know, like I was going to put this song on, Toby Keith, I want to talk about me, I want to talk about me. Well, sometimes when you read the Jehovah's Witness stuff, it's kind of like that. I want to talk about me, I want to talk about I want to talk about number one. You know, that's the JW site. So we're going to look at number one, JW site. And you know, and we're coming, every life is important. Everybody has a story. But the story's a lot bigger than the JW story. You see, I didn't really think, you know, a lot of Jews got killed. But when I was a JW, I thought it was all about us. That's what I thought. And of course, now all these showcases, exhibits in Tel Aviv, showcases Jehovah's Witness experience during the Nazi era. A town in Austria honors 31 Jehovah's Witnesses. You know, there's all kinds of stuff about how Jehovah's Witnesses are getting honored on their site. So we're going to move over. We're going to look at one article here quickly. Holocaust Memorial Center in Hungary unveils plague honoring witnesses executed by Nazis. So here it is, kind of at a Kingdom Hall, and you know, there's a speaker, so he gets up, and you can go on to the site and play this, but it talks about this. The Holocaust Memorial Center in Budapest unveiled the commemorative plaque recognizing four Jehovah's Witnesses who withstood persecution during the Nazi era. And the four men, and it lists their names, I won't try to pronounce them, and they refused military service during World War II, and this plaque bears their names. The Deputy State Secretary for the Priority Social Affairs. So it looks like it was all done in a Kingdom Hall kind of a thing, arranged by Jehovah's Witnesses. You know, they put this article together on it. Another speaker at the unveiling ceremony, it lists them, and that's kind of it. There's not much really on it. It's a pretty basic article, just giving recognition to those four people. So then we move over. This is one that I'd watched years ago when I was a Jehovah's Witness, and I'm going to put it on big screen here. We have it here, and we'll play the purple triangles. So here we go. I'll blow this up. And in case you don't know, if you're out there and you don't know, there's a lot of history here. And this is a real touching movie. It's going to be 23 minutes. So if you've seen it and you don't want to see it again, come back in 23 minutes. The program still goes on. And then we give the rest of the story. Now, the rest of the story is quite interesting, so we do want you to hang in there. But I still feel that as ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, it's nice to recognize this and give Jehovah's Witnesses the recognition that they really deserve. So I'm going to watch this movie, and I got it on my desktop audio, so I'm going to disappear over here, and then you won't hear me.
The locals call this Bowden's Pool, after the Germanic pagan god who was credited with creating earth, sky, man and woman. The water is the source of the River Lippe, which flows from the spa town of Bad Lippspringe into the Rhine and the industrial areas of the Ruhr Valley. Today, it's a peaceful and prosperous little town, just as it was 60 years ago when Franz and Hilda Kusserow arrived here with their 11 children. What began as a peaceful idyll became an epic battle between good and evil as the Kusserows defied Hitler and the Nazi regime. Franz and Hilda Kusserow were married in 1911, 3 years before the Great War that traumatized Europe. Franz Kusserow fought for his country, but his life and beliefs were transformed. The Kusserow story has been lovingly chronicled by the eldest of the 11 children, Anne-Marie, now aged 78. Anne-Marie's parents were born into a comfortably off Protestant environment. But the First World War and a chance meeting with a Jehovah's Witness dramatically changed their lives. Franz, a post office clerk, and Hilda, a former schoolteacher, became full-time missionaries for the International Bible Students Association. They came to this house on the outskirts of Bad Lippspringe to set up congregations in North Westphalia. No Kusserows live here today, but when members of the family do return, there are vivid memories. Magdalena is the Kusserows' fourth daughter. What are your early memories of this house?
Oh, it was so nice. We played here in the garden, in this little piece, and then there also we had some trees with apples and some fruits. We had some potatoes, with salad and different things. We played, we danced together, and then they took some flowers, they make a ring on the head. Then we went down with geese to the river, to bring the geese, that they could
Swim?
no, swim also, yes, and we swim also.
You took the geese for a swim?
Yes, and on the way they took the grass and they ate and we had many fun.
It's a long time since I was here. Not since 1939, I think. The door seemed bigger then.
Hans Werner, now 63, was the Kusserows' 10th child.
It was a very happy time, especially as I had so many brothers and sisters. Everything was happy until I went to school. That was bad, of course.
Every day when children went to school, they thought in advance, what will happen today? What will happen today?
I remember many things. I remember how strong we were, how we didn't salute the flag, how we wouldn't say Heil Hitler, and how we acted a bit differently from other pupils.
Some days were hard, the teacher was like a devil, and he took my hand, he said, Heil Hitler, and beat me.
Weren't you so frightened they would hit you that did you never say Heil Hitler?
No, we never said. Because my father said, look, Heil Hitler means the salvation comes from Hitler. As we learn of the Bible, the Heil, the salvation comes by Jesus Christ.
The Kusserows' house was known as the Golden Age. A huge sign advertising the Jehovah's Witness magazine was emblazoned in gold letters outside their home. Inside, the parents gave the children their love and their time, and they taught the Bible and music, lessons which would have a lifetime's impact. Cousireaus, then and now, firmly believed the creed of the Jehovah's Witnesses, that our world, now influenced by Satan, will soon be transformed into the 1,000-year reign of Christ promised in the Bible. The evil will die, whilst the good and faithful will be physically reborn into paradise.
I was from morning to the evening visiting people who like to know what the Bible says about preaching work or missionary work. They like to receive me.
Much of the literature distributed by the Cousireaus came from the Witnesses' headquarters in New York. In Germany, the Witnesses were a very small sect of just 20,000 people, and yet Hitler saw the movement as a rival ideology to the Nazis. So he set out to seize their literature and wreck the organization.
Now, I just want to come on the background here. We're going to talk about this later. When Rutherford was running things, he had the Witnesses actually go door to door with a paper, and it was called the Declaration of Facts. And they don't really they don't talk about it here. Like Jehovah's Witnesses don't talk about this, but Rutherford was trying to get into bed with the Nazis at the beginning, and then the Nazis said no, it's not going to happen. But it was like he was saying, well, we don't like this about the world governments, and he actually named some of the world governments. We'll get into that later on. But it's, you see, what Rutherford did, and he was condemned by witnesses around the world in the U.S. and all over. He was condemned for this, for maybe instigating the push on the massacre of Jehovah's Witnesses. So there's the other side of the story. I'm going to get out of here, let you guys watch the rest of the video, but this is why we do these things. We run them so we can talk about them. And it's no, we're not belittling anything what happened there. It's an atrocity. It's a Holocaust. So, but there is more to this little bit of the story. And thanks for listening.
So where were the books and the literature? Where was it?
Here also, from there. Here.
Under the stairs?
Yes, there, from there, and also
Up here.
upstairs.
And how many times did the police come to the house?
Oh, many times.
And they hid them here?
Hier? Yes. Hier waren die Steine. Hier war Boot.
Well, under the eaves.
Yeah, on the roofs. And then the books here 10 meters lang. Hier 10 Meter. Und die Bücher rein. Und dann haben wir die Steine reingelegt und Spinnweben rüber getan. Hier. Und hier war ein Balken und nochmal ein Balken, muss man ganz vorsichtig gehen.
They came, how many times did you say?
18 times. 16, 17, 18
And they always searched in this area?
have not found the books.
The Nazis weren't easily dissuaded. The Golden Age sign on the Cousireaus' house was blacked out. But although the Witnesses had been officially banned, the family maintained their religious activities in secret.
She said, Magdalena, you go behind 3-4 meters behind me. You carry the Bible, that I have nothing in my hand. And she spoke with the people. And there were one man, I don't know, was he was a stranger. He didn't belong to Bad Lippspringe. And he denounced us, he called the police.
In 1936, the first time my mother was arrested to Paderborn. This was the first time.
Franz and Hilda Cousireau were among the hundreds of Jehovah's Witnesses arrested by the Gestapo in 1936. They were briefly reunited in 1937 when this last complete family photograph was taken. Later that year, their son Siegfried died in a swimming accident. His death signalled the end of the idyll. By now, most Germans were wallowing in nationalistic pride and revived economic fortune. Communists, gypsies, homosexuals, dissidents, the handicapped, and above all the Jews, were hunted down, even in Bad Lippspringe. Today, the town memorialises its former Jewish residents. Little more than 50 years ago, they were hounding them out and baying for their blood. It seems a long while ago. For the moment, dissidents are tolerated. Jehovah's Witnesses can sell their magazine, The Watchtower, and openly recruit converts. In the 1930s, this street in Paderborn was dominated by the prison, and this is where the Kuserows were jailed. Witnesses began to lose their jobs and pensions. The Gestapo stepped up their surveillance. But the Kuserows' garden was still supplying fresh produce. The three youngest members of the family were being well cared for. They were the next target.
Ja, das war einer der schwarzen Tage. Ich war zu der Zeit gerade krank.
At that time, I was ill and didn't go to school. I was lying in bed here.
Plötzlich kam ein Auto vorgefahren, Zivilisten. Ich konnte das aus dem
Suddenly, a
Fenster
car
raussehen.
drove up. There seemed to be two civilians in it. I could see them from the window.
Kam forsch hier rein und haben uns dann, ich musste aus dem Bett aufstehen, anziehen.
They burst in and wanted me to go with them. They hesitated because I was ill, and for appearance's sake took me to a doctor to see if I could be taken away.
Ich musste dann mitfahren zum Arzt, rein pro forma, ob ich mitfahren
Then they
konnte.
collected my sister and brother from school, and we left.
Meine Schwester und mein Bruder aus der Schule geholt und dann sind wir losgefahren.
Denn wir wurden aus der Schule herausgeholt.
We were taken from school.
Der war ja krank, wurde
My brother, who was ill, was collected from home.
und wir fuhren
We
gemeinsam
were taken
mit den
by two
zwei
policemen to the orphanage in Dorsten.
nach Dorsten in das Erziehungsheim. Ich kann mich natürlich noch gut daran erinnern, wie ich mich
I can still remember how I vomited all over the jacket of one of the policemen.
und hatte Mühe,
It took a lot of effort to clean it up once the car stopped.
die Jacke wieder reinzubekommen. Hatte also
Then the
Probleme
journey
damit.
continued to
Und dann
Dorsten
ging die
and the
Fahrt
orphanage.
weiter nach Dorsten in das Erziehungsheim.
Am anderen Morgen mussten wir wieder, das
In the
wiederholen.
morning,
Das heißt,
he
wir
again
sollten noch mal
told
den
us to give the
Versuch
Hitler
machen.
salute.
Haben wir wieder nicht gemacht.
And when we refused,
Dann hat uns
he took us into a
mit,
room,
in,
laid us across the
ein
table,
Zimmer genommen,
and beat us black and blue.
grün und blau geschlagen. Das war schlimm, war das.
It was bad.
Jeden Abend haben wir geduscht. Das heißt, die Heimleiterin.
We took a
die
shower
Erzieherin,
every evening,
die hatte das
and when the
Gefühl,
female head of the house saw us,
rausgenommen,
she made us bathe separately so that the other children would not see.
sehen sollten. Das war
It
sehr
was very bad.
When the Second World War began, the two eldest Kuserow daughters, Anne-Marie and Waltraud, escaped surveillance and left to find jobs in Berlin. It was more difficult for their brothers. In December 1939, Wilhelm, after refusing military service, was thrown into jail.
Dear parents, brothers and sisters, all of you know how much you mean to me, and I am repeatedly reminded of this every time I look at our family photograph. How harmonious things always were at home. Nonetheless, above all else, we must love God as our Führer Jesus Christ commanded. If we stand up for him, he will reward us.
As predominantly Aryan Germans, Jehovah's Witnesses were sometimes allowed the privilege of a Nazi trial. Later, Wilhelm's court-appointed lawyer, Dr. James Rohr, wrote to the family,
I had long conversations with your son before his trial and admired his calm confidence of faith. He never wavered, although he was severely pressed from all quarters. He calmly accepted the announcement of the hour of his execution, refusing again to change his mind, that is, to abandon his faith and save his life. On the morning of the execution, I took his hand and said in consolation, Mr. Kuserow, you have been wonderfully strong. remain strong now. He squeezed my hand and smilingly replied, "No, doctor, don't be troubled. I am gaining everlasting life. All this is only a change." He asked me to send you his greetings. He stood upright when facing death and was dead at once.
Unable to browbeat the witnesses, the Nazis tried lies and subterfuge. With an elaborate ritual of deceit, they issued certificates and reports declaring that Wilhelm Kuserow had died a hero's death fighting for Hitler and the Third Reich. For some unknown reason, the Nazis allowed the family to collect Wilhelm's body from Münster prison, where he'd been shot. His sister Waltraud helped to arrange the funeral.
It shocked me deep, but Wilhelm was true until the death. I have seen the body in the little hall there, and he was in a private suite, and until here, Löcher.
The bullet holes?
Yeah, holes, and the blood was in the mouth.
There was a big funeral with a secret police around, and then with persons in uniform, policemen. And my brother Karl has said some words.
And then later, my brother Karl, because he spoke a few words and a prayer, the Gestapo kept him.
Karl, son number 3, was the next arrested. He was brutally tortured in Dachau and Sachsenhausen concentration camps. In April 1941, the Gestapo swooped again. After a brief release from jail, Franz and Hilda Kuserow were re-arrested, as were their daughters Hildegard and Magdalena. Nazi tenants took over the house that once proclaimed the dawning of a golden age. The Kuserows were sent to concentration camps, where the witnesses were forced to wear distinctive insignia. The Jews wore a yellow star, the witnesses a purple triangle.
When we went through the concentration camp, we saw this purple triangle. Then I knew there's my sister. I said, "Hello, sister, how are you? What's your name? Where you come from?"
The witnesses fared better in the camps than many prisoners. Absolute conviction in their faith and strict discipline helped their morale. Soon Magdalena was joined at Ravensbrück by her mother and her sister, Hildegard.
I saw my mother. I was so happy, and she told me everything. She was happy, and it was really good because I had swollen arms. I couldn't walk. I couldn't dress myself because of this sickness. It was rheuma or something. And my mother, she dressed me. She made my hair.
Despite the evil and hardship at Ravensbrück, Frau Kuserow kept her faith. Her son Wilhelm had given his life for the faith, and younger brother Wolfgang, when called for military service, showed true Kuserow defiance.
I was brought up as one of Jehovah's Witnesses according to God's word contained in the Holy Scriptures. The greatest and most holy law he gave mankind is, "You shall love your God above all else, and your neighbor as yourself." Other commandments read, "You must not kill." Did our Creator have all this written down for the trees? Just as Jesus Christ and his disciples were persecuted, so are God's people also persecuted today. I know for sure that if Jesus Christ were to live on earth today, he would be persecuted just as he was then.
Wolfgang was beheaded on March the 28th, 1942. The night before, he wrote,
"My dear parents and my dear brothers and sisters, I shall leave you as your third son and brother early in the morning. Be not sad. The time will come when we shall be together again. Those who sow with tears will reap with joy." In James chapter 1, verse 12, it says, "Blessed is the man that endures temptation, For when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which Jehovah has promised to them that love him. In this faith and in this conviction I go from you, your son and brother, Wolfgang.
By now, Waltraud had returned from Berlin and managed to find work in this florist shop in Paderborn. She was ordered to greet customers with the Heil Hitler salutation. She refused.
Ist die auch sehr schön?
Oh ja, ich würde gern die.
After being given 8 days to change her mind, she still refused and was arrested and imprisoned in Paderborn and told to make ammunition.
I cannot work for the war. This I cannot work, this for the war. My brother is killed, is shot. My other brother is beheaded. My 3 sisters, little ones, the Gestapo have kept there. And my other brother in concentration camp, my mother in concentration camp, my 2 sisters, and also my father in prison. No, I cannot make that.
By 1944, just one member of the Cousireau family was free, Anne-Marie, who was still in Berlin.
Every week I had with me in my apartment some persons to have a Bible study. And therefore I was arrested. There must be a person who has observed us.
The Nazis had rounded up every single member of the family. Some were dead, and the future for the rest uncertain. Yet they had a lifeline. Unlike all other prisoners, Jehovah's Witnesses could secure their release, simply by signing a declaration that they'd abandoned their faith. Of the thousands arrested, only a handful did so.
I was not ready to sign. I thought I have think over my parents, my little children. I mean my brothers and my sisters. They are so faithful, so obedient. Although we all were separated, we were all separated. And when I now am free, what should I do? My conscience, I have thought it over. It is impossible to be unfaithful.
How could I sign that I am not a witness? How could I leave my faith? Never, never, never.
So how they could sign and leave their faith. So you could sign and say, I'm leaving the Jehovah's Witness faith, but then you leave the room and you're still worshiping God, if you want to call him Jehovah, Jesus Christ, but you just quit the religion. Like that, we all quit the religion on this side of the fence. So could you imagine if they just quit the religion, quit following Rutherford? Rutherford was like the governing body. They were giving him a lot of idol worship at that time. And we're going to talk about that. We're right at the end of the program here.
In April 1945, Ravensbrück concentration camp was liberated. Hilda Cousireau and her daughters were released. Imprisonment had strengthened their faith, and morally the witnesses had defeated the Nazis. Hilda was reunited with her husband, and with the surviving members of the family, rebuilt their lives. Although they never returned to their Golden Age home, they always remained faithful Jehovah's Witnesses. They were back in a Germany where the Protestant and Catholic churches were still the predominant religious groups. Despite rebellion and martyrdom by some believers, most church leaders had bowed the knee to the Nazis. Hitler, confirmed a Catholic, was never excommunicated. The church was silent, whilst millions of Jews and others.
I read some other articles on that. There was a lot of Catholics that and priests that died. Yet this article is saying, let's just back this up a bit. This article is saying, this video is saying Hitler confirmed a Catholic was never excommunicated. most church leaders had bowed the knees to the Nazis. So let's just keep seeing what this article says. Remember, folks, this is a Watchtower production. So don't believe everything that they say. It's done by Watchtower.
The Nazis. Hitler, confirmed a Catholic, was never excommunicated. The church was silent, whilst millions of Jews and others died. Among the organized Christian religions in Germany, it was only the Jehovah's Witnesses who refused any compromise at all with Hitler and the Nazis.
You know, I should probably just stay on the screen here to debunk all this stuff, but that's false.
Like the first Christians, they too were reviled and ridiculed, and they were martyred. Among the millions who perished in the Holocaust, there were some 5,000 Jehovah's Witnesses, and yet those who survived still proclaimed, there is a purpose to all this. There is a God.
Now, we're at the end of the program. Did he say there was 5,000 witnesses? Did I hear that wrong? And yet those who survived claim there's a purpose to all this. There were some 5,000 Jehovah's Witnesses, what? And they were martyred. Yeah, they took their own lives. It's kind of like the blood transfusion thing. But here we go.
Among the millions who perished in the Holocaust, there were some 5,000 Jehovah's Witnesses. And yet those who survived still proclaimed, there is a purpose to all this. There is a God.
Okay, so that's the end of the program. Okay, so let's take a look at some other stuff here. Check the live here and see how you guys are all doing. Oh, you're still there, so I might as well continue on. Everyone didn't leave. We'll keep going. A few people stuck around, so thanks for sticking around. I know some of these topics aren't the most exciting, but you know, it's good to cover them because it's good to get the rest of the story on them. Now we're going to go all the way up here to, if you go to JW, what is this? Avoid JW. And this is like, it talks about Germany state parliament commemorates suffering of Jehovah's Witnesses by the Nazis. So that they give a little write-up on that. And the one I was looking at here earlier today was from JW Facts, and there's a lot on the Holocaust, disfellowshipping experiences and all kinds of stuff. So I pulled up a little bit of that, and we went right to this on JW Facts. They called it the Watchtower Scandal. Among child abuse cover-ups, Jehovah's Witnesses and blood transfusions. You know, that's called selective suicide. So that means that they choose when they want to die, you know, if it's regarding blood, right? And if we have time, we're going to look at one article on that today because it's quite similar to what happened here by selective suicide. So it's selective suicide, just like back in the days of the Nazis, because of Rutherford. Rutherford said to do that. So we're looking at this letter to Hitler right here. Here's the rest of the story. You're never going to see this in Watchtower. They're not going to show this, but this is all what Rutherford did back then. So the letter to Hitler and the Declaration of Facts. Watchtower criticizes other religious groups for colluding with Hitler, whilst Jehovah's Witnesses were imprisoned for their refusal to compromise their standards. What is not admitted is that Rutherford initially praised Hitler for his stance against Jews and the Anglo-American Empire. And you know, it gives this little thing here. One of the groups Hitler sent to the concentration camps were Jehovah's Witnesses. And we just learned all about that, so I'm not going to get into that. So here I want to see the letter to Hitler. The letter to Hitler. Russell founded the Watchtower. Was a Zionist and a sympathetic to the Jews as part of the modern day fulfillment of Bible prophecy. Rutherford initially continued such support, but changed by the 1930s to an anti-Semitic stance. So this is interesting. And here's the golden age. It says, be it known once for all that those profiteering, conscious, selfless men who call themselves Jews and who control the greater portion of the finances of the world and the business world will never be the rulers of this new earth. So Rutherford went right against them. And during the time of Rutherford, Watchtower published a triad of insults against other churches and governments. The Catholic Church come under the greatest condemnation and brought this to the attention of the Nazi government, petitioning against Watchtower. And in 1933, the Nazi government banned the Watchtower's German operations. So in an effort to overturn the ban, Rutherford sent a letter to Hitler in which he praises Hitler for his anti-Anglo-American campaign stance against the Jews. And click on the thumbnail for the high-quality scan of each page of the German letter, and click the letter for the English translation. So we're not going to do that. We're talking about it here. You can go to JW Facts if you want to see this. This letter is also on Wikipedia. And if you go to Wikipedia, just plug in Declaration of Facts, Watchtower. It all comes up and you can read it on Wikipedia. I covered this in another video a while ago. So the Brooklyn headquarters of the Watchtower Society is pro-German in an exemplary way and has been so for many years. For that reason, in 1918, the president of the society and 7 members of the board of directors were sentenced to 80 years in prison because the president refused to use 2 of the magazines published in America under his direction for war propaganda against Germany. These 2 magazines, the Watchtower and the Bible Students, were the only magazines in America which refused to engage in anti-German propaganda, and for that reason were prohibited and suppressed in the Americas during the war. So this is where you get a lot of the rest of the story. The Watchtower has changed their stance so many times on things. The letter mentions Hitler's just principles, quoting from section 24 of a Nazi platform thing, and it stated, "We demand freedom of religion for all religious denominations within the state so long as they do not endanger its existence or oppose the moral sense of Germanic race. The party as such advocates the standpoint of a positive Christianity without binding itself confessionally to any one denomination. It combats the Jewish materialistic spirit within and around us and is convinced that the lasting recovery of our nation can only succeed from within the framework, the good for the community before the good of the individual." And this was part of the Hitler's whole program. So Rutherford further compromised the Watchtower principles, but offering, "We want to continue to live up to this prohibition imposed upon us." By this, Rutherford meant that Jehovah's Witnesses would stop preaching in Germany, provided the ban was lifted, and that would allow them to meet for prayer and church services. So, So the conventioners returned home and tired, and many were disappointed, and they took 2.1 million copies of this declaration home with them. However, and made fast work of distributing them and sending them to numerous persons in positions of responsibility. So you see, they knocked on Hitler's door with this declaration, and you see, Rutherford, in the U.S., he was all secure, so he could just demand that these guys do things in Germany, and they did. So it's terrible. I think Rutherford went there and gave a big talk. So I'm not going to get through all of this. There's a lot of stuff. Even though the declaration had weakened many brothers and could not wholeheartedly agree to its adoption, yet the government was enraged and started a wave of persecution against those who had distributed it. So this is right in the yearbook, 1974. You can read all about it. They talk about it. The Declaration of Facts, it's basically saying that they sided with Hitler on a number of things. I'm just going to see if I could falsely charged. So it's even, they have it in their yearbook apparently. But I went on to Wikipedia and I found it and I read on it. And basically Rutherford was trying to make a deal with Hitler. You know, we're like you guys, you know. So there's a lot on this, on Germany, a lot of comics, a lot of stuff. It's a huge, huge subject all over the world, like in so many different, look at how long this article is. So there's no way I could read all this, but I'm going to move on. And this is a little one, German MPs. Let's see if we can get it better. German MPs back memorial for Jehovah's Witnesses persecuted and killed by Nazi. Parliament calls on the government to build a monument in Berlin's park running existing sites says 1,700 followers of the religion died. So did we not just learn in that video that it was 5,000 people died? I thought they said 5,000 martyred. Here it says 1,700. That's a big difference. So Berlin, Germany, the parliament has approved this construction for Jehovah's Witnesses. So, the article goes on. 1,700 Jehovah's Witnesses died as a result of the Nazi rule. They were persecuted, tormented, and murdered. Just like a lot of others, right? So we're not undermining or belittling what the Jehovah's Witnesses did, but 1,700, not 5,000. So here's another article, Nazi persecution, other groups. It talks about the other groups. Hundreds of thousands of lives were destroyed because of the Nazi persecution, and many groups did not receive acknowledgement of their suffering. So many of the groups, let's look at this. Right above my head, there's a chart. The Jews, approximately 6 million Jews died. That's a lot more than 1,700. I'm not undermining any death. One death is important. Soviet civilians. The Soviet civilians, 5.7 million died. And the Soviets, they were fighting Hitler. They were fighting along with the rest of the world. Now the Soviet POWs, 2.8 million to 3 million POWs. Poles, whoever they are, the Poles, who are the Poles? It doesn't really say here, but they were a group, 1.8 to 3 million died of the Poles. The Serbs, 300,000 to 600,000 Serbs died. Disabled people, folks. Hitler killed them all. 270,000 disabled people died. So if you're disabled, let's say you had a loss of hearing, or you had one bad eye, or you're disabled, or you lost a finger, you're on the death list. 270,000. That's a lot more than 1,700 Jehovah's Witnesses. Do they all get statues, I wonder? Maybe they do. Romania, 130,000 to 500,000 died from Romania fighting to stop this Turkey, to stop this demon. The Freemasons, 80,000 to 200,000 Freemasons were targeted, died. Slovens, 20,000 to 25 Slovens. Homosexuals, 5,000 to 15,000 homosexuals. See, the JWs wanted to be right at the homosexual. They said 5,000. They're not. They're not even below them. Spanish Republicans were 3,500. At the bottom of the list, the very bottom of the list, the 16th number is Jehovah's Witnesses. 1,250. They're even saying 1,250 to maybe 5,000, but yet every other article is saying 1,700. They're saying 1,700, and they nailed the number down. Now, Wikipedia says 1,250 to 5,000. So you know what Jehovah's Witnesses did? They made themselves look like 5,000, and it's not true. So it's typical what they do. Have you seen Jehovah's Witnesses talk about the Jews, Soviet civilians, the disabled people, the Serbs, the homosexuals, the Freemasons, and all these people? No, they talk about me, they talk about they talk about number one. And there's a lot more people that died in Hitler, this Holocaust, than we would know as an ex-Jehovah's Witness. Because as an ex-Jehovah's Witness, we thought it was the Jews and the Jehovah's Witnesses, and that was it. And that's not it. There's a lot of other people that were Christians, that had different religions, and that made a stand. And these people actually got involved with the outside world and snuck in and helped the outside world combat Hitler, which Jehovah's Witnesses didn't do any of that. So there's lots and lots of stories on that. This is the rest of the story. It's not to knock what Jehovah's Witnesses did or the Purple Triangle, but it's to help the audience see that there's more to it than you'll see ever on JW.org. Now, we're going to close the program here today, and I'm going to just go to live. I'm going to say bye to everyone. We'll see you, K. Fred, Michelle Mooney, and STR. Who else is? Blue Rose is out there. Cindy Lynn. Tadashi, hello. Mark Weatherhill, how you doing, buddy? I love some of your comments. Keep them up. And if you guys really want to learn a lot about stuff, look up Mark Weatherhill. He's a smart guy. GG4G. Gilbert, thanks for being on with us. Beverly and Mark, thanks for all your comments, you guys. Hey, great audience. You're going to love this one, you guys. And don't take this wrong. This was just a funny, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to get off the screen so you guys can see this.
Everyone in the room knows 6 million Jewish people lost their lives to the Nazis during World War II. But a lot of people don't know, because it's not really taught in our schools, that the Nazis also killed, in their thousands, gypsies, homosexuals, disabled people, and Jehovah's Witnesses. No one knows what happened with the Jehovah's Witnesses. You'd have to assume some Jehovah's Witnesses came a knocking on the gates of a death camp with a copy of a magazine called Watchtower. Some enterprising Nazi guard. Ah, yes, come in, it's very interested in your magazines. It's the Watchtower, we have the Watchtowers here. It is, how you say, a coinkydink. This is a long journey for the witnesses. If you come in, you freshen up, take a shower. Everyone in the room knows 6 million Jewish people.
Anyways, some of these guys, eh? So I hope you didn't take that the wrong way. I thought it was a little bit funny. And there's a lot of truth there. You know, the Jehovah's Witnesses did come knocking on the Nazis' doors. Rutherford sent them there. So this guy has it right. There's a lot of people that died. So, folks, here's our outro. Until next time, keep living your life with love. Bye for now. And we love you. Remember that. Okay.